Welcome to another episode of The Raw Truth. As always, I'm your host, PX Bad Boy, and today we'll be talking about double standards. Can't stand them. Today I'm going to start off with a scenario that just happened a couple hours ago or hour ago. Now, I was bringing mention to how growing up the police treated me and my brother different because I'm going to say it's race, because throughout the hundreds of interactions I've had with the police and my brother, they treated him differently right in front of me than they did me. They were a little bit rougher with him. They didn't break any laws, but they definitely treated him more like a threat than me. And the only main difference between him and I was color. He's black, I'm white. So I brought that up to someone's attention during a conversation, and their answer to me was, well, if you didn't break the law, do anything wrong, it would never happen. That is basically saying the cop can do it to someone else. That's someone else's problem. That's a whole nother scenario, but you just justified what they did as making it our fault. That's like those douchebags that say, oh, she was asking for it because she was wearing a tight dress. It's not the rapist's fault. It's her fault because she was wearing a tight dress. So I brought that example up. It's the same ignorance of trying to justify someone else's actions that are unjustifiable. And the person refused to listen, refused to have a conversation. She kept talking over me, preventing me from speaking. All they could keep saying is they're different, they're different, they're different, they're different, they're different. They're not different. In both scenarios, there's the douche trying to justify their own actions. They're both crimes that are trying to be justified by the person committing the crime. Now, them being rough with my brother wasn't an actual crime, but it was a crime against humanity in a sense. It was inhumane to treat him rougher than me. And to say if we didn't commit any crimes or break any rules or violate any laws, that would never have happened. Maybe to us, but it would have happened to someone else. But our interactions weren't just illegal or rule breaking. Just because we were in a certain place the cop didn't think we should be at the hour that we were there. Like for reference, we were in Washington Heights in New York City. The cops automatically assumed that we were there for drugs, but they still treated me better than they did him. You know how a cop puts the handcuffs behind your back and they can hold on to the cuff? The cop held on to mine, but the other cop lifted my brother's up, putting his arms up behind his back. There was no justifiable reason for that. We don't resist police. It doesn't benefit us to do so. We'll just deal with the situation as it comes. We're respectful, but they still were rougher with him. And saying that if we didn't commit a crime or we weren't there at the time of this and the time of that, that's justifying the person's actions that were done to us, making it us being at fault. It's the same thing as the douche who's trying to justify his actions. It wasn't his fault. He couldn't control himself because she was wearing a tight dress. That's just as unjustifiable. So this is about double standards, and I'm getting tired of it. Now, the person told me they're completely different and refused to listen and talked over me and kept talking and not listening. And then kept telling me stop yelling, and even when I wasn't yelling, continued to say stop yelling. It's a double standard that I'm getting tired of. Where you can do whatever you want, but I can't. You can talk over me, you can talk loud, blah, 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 and I just got to sit back and take it. I don't think so. If you can do it to me, then guess what? I can do it to you. And those of you who've been following me, remember rule number 5. Don't be a hypocrite. Now, I didn't say anything. I got loud because she was preventing me from talking, so I got louder than her. Not because I wanted to be loud. I didn't want to be. They got loud, or they prevented me from talking, or prevented me from speaking so they couldn't hear it. So then I talked over them. That's not how they see it. Of course not. They see it that I'm the one who was being the dick, and I was the one being nasty. You know what? I love you and all, but that's bullshit. Okay? I made a valid point of ignorance. And all you heard was what you wanted to hear. All you heard was someone justifying rape because of the outfit. I wasn't justifying rape. I was comparing you justifying the police action by saying it was our fault. If we just behaved, we wouldn't have to interact with them. It wouldn't have happened to us. That's justifying that they're in the right, we're in the wrong. The guy saying her dress is the cause is justifying their actions, making it her fault. Same exact thing. But it's not saying I agree with the justification. I'm stating the two justifies are just as stupid. And this happens everywhere. Now, like I said in a previous podcast, that I was wrong. I had a choice how to react to my sister back at the barbecue. Yes. And I overreacted, and I acted incorrectly in the sense that I should have approached it differently. I was trying to approach this conversation just as suit, calmly trying to explain myself as that person continued to cut me off. That person continued to talk over me because they didn't want to hear what I had to say because they didn't like it, being that they were female, and I was talking about how a douche canoe would justify his actions by her dress. I'm not justifying that. He did. As an example. Just like she just justified what the police did to us as being our fault because we were in the wrong place at the wrong time or because we broke the rules. Same exact scenario. She's justifying the actions. That guy's justifying the actions, which are unjustifiable. But she didn't want to hear that. She just wanted to keep talking over me. And maybe I shouldn't have yelled, but I hate that. I hate that with a passion. But I wasn't yelling to yell. I was trying to get my words out. Now maybe if I would have just stopped and let her continue to babble and try to cut me off, but not give her something to cut off, maybe things would have went differently. But it's like a pet peeve. I say something you don't like, and from that point on, you're going to try to blur me out? Nah, I'm not a child. That's childish. And it's not because I said something directly offensive. You heard what you wanted to hear. And you want to blur me out by blabbling on? I'm sorry, that's childish. And I know if this person hears this, they're not going to be too happy with me. But at the moment, they're not too happy with me. So I don't necessarily see the downside. Now, let me be clear. I'm not calling that person childish. She is far from childish. But that action is childish. And so was mine trying to talk over someone trying to talk over me. Let's make sure that's clear too. But this whole double standard crap, where people make shit up so it suits them, is really getting on my nerves. 2 plus 2 is 4. You cannot say 2 plus 2 is 1 because it equals one number and make that up as you go along. The two incidents are identical, not separate. They're separate crimes, but we're not talking about the crimes themselves. We're talking about two people trying to justify them with unjust statements. But I digress. Just like the three scenarios I was going to talk about with my brother, and I will continue with him when he heals. He's got some work to do. He's got some catching up to do too. But Jacob Blake, George Floyd, and Daniel Prude. Those three are identical situations. Wrong interactions with the cops, and the cops handled it wrong. Okay? Two of them were murdered the exact same way. They were both suffocated and died because of it. Now, the third one didn't die yet. He's from an ascending, paralyzed from the waist down, but he got shot in the back 7 times unjustly and stupidly. There was no reason for the cop to be up his ass. If you were worried about being in harm's way, anybody, not just a police officer, would have backed up and took aim and waited to see what came out. And if felt justified then, shoot him in the front. It's against the law to shoot someone in the back, and it's cowardly. Probably why it's against the law. These are not just coincidences that these 3 cases took place in the last 6 months. With 3 different sets of cops. Okay? One was in Rochester. I forget where George Floyd was, and I wasn't sure where Jacob Blake was. But 3 different states, I believe, and definitely 3 different sets of cops. But the same damn outcome. What do they all have in common? Oh yeah, that's right. They were all black, and the cops were called, and they misjudged the situation, and they relied on their so-called training, and they reacted instead of resolved. When you react to something, like the argument I had earlier with the individual who will remain nameless, I was reacting. They were reacting. We weren't resolving. So 2 people trying to react, butt heads. Now the cops approached the situation so wrong for whatever reason. And all I'm saying is the only unifying factor in all 3 cases is one thing. They were all black men. Daniel Prude, they put a spit bag over his head because they believed he had COVID. Where would you get that intended from? Where would you get that idea from? No one called you, said, hey, there's a guy with COVID running around. His brother called up saying his brother was having mental problems and needed help before he ended up accidentally hurting himself or someone else. The man was running around the street in his underwear. How dangerous was he that you needed to bag his head and then force his face to the ground, suffocating him? None of this makes any sense. There's an old saying, and all 3 cases are going to get it all, including the 4th one I'll bring up in 2 seconds. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Yeah, maybe they didn't break any procedures that they were trained, but that doesn't mean they had to do what they did. Because there's a high risk of killing somebody with a bag on their head, which was made of nylon, is supposed to be breathable. It's called a spit bag. Because he was spitting. He was having a mental breakdown. He was not in his faculties. A police officer should know that, but I guess that's not part of their training exactly. So they should have sent someone else. This is part of the problem everybody keeps that has the problem with the police force. The police force is called for everything. From a cat in a tree to an armed gunman. The cop deals with it all. Not a social worker, not a doctor, not a therapist. Those are nowhere in sight. Only a cop with a gun. So their only real resolution is electrifying that person, tasing them, or shooting them, or beating them up. Now, when they're not prepared or they're ill-prepared for a situation, that's going to be the outcome. So most people want the funding that goes to the police force that they, used to buy tanks and rocket launchers and AK-47s and armed to the teeth. They want some of that funding to go to the rest of the community for social workers, therapists, what other people that aren't armed and dangerous, to be able to respond to these situations when there's something mental, something viral. Like if someone that was spitting up something viral, you're not sending the cops to this guy. You're going to send hazmat. So why, when someone's having a mental breakdown, which is not their fault, would you send an armed man? If I was sick and I had all this plague stuff going on, they're going to send a hazmat team to this house. The cops will not enter here. Once they're told is a virus broke out, like COVID or a plague, they're not coming in this house. They're going to sit outside and they're going to send in hazmat teams. So why don't they do the similar thing for a mental breakdown, which is, again, like a virus, out of our control? But no, they send a police officer who ends up shooting the person, hurting the person, or suffocating them to death, trying to restrain them. Somebody with mental issues like Daniel Prude allegedly had, according to his brother, is not in their faculty to go, oh, sit still, don't spit. Oh, okay, officer, I'm so sorry. I mean, the guy was out in his underwear. And it took 5 months before they did anything about the murder. Really? If this would have been a white man and it would have been done by a black officer or a black man did this to them, it would have taken a whole lot less than 5 months. The same day the guy would have been probably arrested. I don't want to find out because I don't want that situation to happen any more than I wanted the first one. Floyd was also handled improperly. The cop should not have had his knee in the back of his neck, period. On his back, perhaps, trying to hold him down. But there was 4 cops holding him down. So it was excessive to put your knee on his neck. Case 2 handled wrong. Case 3. Now yes, Jacob Blake walked around his vehicle, was ignoring commands, and supposedly he was tased. But even if he was going in to reach for his knife, because they found no gun according to the police report, when he went inside his car, if he grabbed the knife, what's he going to do with it if you're not on top of his shoulder? See, this is not about right and wrong here. This is far from right and wrong. This is about their authority being challenged. If you look at any YouTube video, any news report, anytime anybody, including blacks, which just happen to be more often than others, when a cop gets violent is when you tell them, no, I'm not listening to you. They can't hand that. Oh, I'm a police officer, I'm the authority around here. You do what I say. No. Oh, yeah? I'm going to make you do it. Like an angry parent talking to a child. It's ridiculous. That's the problem. It's their authority being challenged, and they don't know how to handle that. And the only way they know to handle it with violence, bullets, or tasing, or choking, apparently. So he was resisting their commands. I don't know if it was arrest, because he was being accused of something. They didn't catch him doing anything, and he refused. Walked around his car. The cop literally followed on his heels. Jacob went into his car, and then shots went off, and the cop was literally blank range. You put yourself in that harm's way, and we're not even talking about traditional harm's way, where the cop is on the road protecting himself and us from the bad guy. No, he put himself on unnecessary risk. There was no reason to be that close. And there was no reason to have his gun out that close. There's a good chance those 3 children that were in the car could have gotten shot too. He didn't take that into effect. Only thing he took into effect was shooting the guy disobeying him. Like we're their pets and they're our masters. That's not how this works. but that's how they treat it. Every incident I have seen where the police handled things wrong, it was at the moment that the person they were talking to told them, I'm not doing what you say. No, I don't have to listen to you. That, and right then and there, that is the moment where the cop goes from a peaceful officer to I'm going to hurt you until you do what I say. You know what that sounds like to me? Starts with a B. It's got an E in there somewhere, and an O, and an OE. Bully. Those particular officers were bullying, in some cases innocent, in other cases disobedient. They were bullying them, trying to get to the results they wanted. They didn't care how they got them, as long as they got them. That's what a bully does. He's not going to care how he gets your lunch money. He's going to get it whether you like it or not. I've seen many bullies in my 41 years. Some bullies just threaten and hope you give up the money. Hope you give up the snack or the shoes or whatever. Other bullies really want you to say no so they can fight. But either way, at the end of the day, what they want is what they want, and if they don't get it, they're going to force it. It reminds me of what my father told me when I was a kid, and I think my uncle told me too. I don't care how I get you to respect me, but you're going to respect me out of fear or just out of respect. So you don't care about me. You just care about your order. Not law and order, your order. Because some of the police officers were unlawful requests. The person looks suspicious, so that means you have to give up your ID. No. You have to suspect them of a crime and have a reason to suspect them. Other than somebody going, officer, there's a guy outside over there. That's not you witnessing me being suspicious. You have to witness me do something before you can force me to give up my ID. And when I tell you no, then you're going to fucking beat me up and throw me around and potentially kill me like the others? That's asinine. That's actually close to psychotic. But if they were in our shoes, oh my goodness, they would be a fit, so fit. You can't talk to me that way, da 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 da, I'm a police officer. Again, throwing your weight around. You know what it comes down to? Besides bullying, a pissing contest. I'm starting to think that all cops should be women. And I only say that because women very rarely, though it happens, I won't act like I don't, rarely give a shit about pissing contests. They don't care whose dick is bigger, could care less. Now, don't get me wrong, they want you to do what they say, but it's a different approach. And I just think maybe it might have been better if there was women cops instead of men. The testosterone in a man, once he hears, no, I'm not doing what you say, they lose their damn mind. And, hey, I'm the first one to admit it. There'll be times my son tells me no, and my eyes open up like this. I start growling like a wild freaking animal. I'm like, you said what? Excuse me? He went, nothing, Daddy. I try to use authority and slight intimidation, giving him a chance to retract what he says or does by just repeating, excuse me. And if he says it again, well, then that's blatant disrespect. Most of the time, it's initial response, emotional. Children are all emotional. In most cases, they're all over the wall. So I give him a chance by saying, excuse me. And if he tries to weasel his way out of it, I say, excuse me again, until he gives me exactly what I want. And if the disrespect continues, well, then I'm the rock, and I lay at the smack. Plain and simple. But I don't have to do that as much anymore, or at all, and I made a promise that I wouldn't physically discipline him. what he wanted. And, he pushed me to the level, and I still didn't do it. But, there's loopholes to everything. I told him, listen, I don't have to obey these. This is a promise I made you. Remember that. So be careful how far that line you plan on crossing. Because I cross lines too if you like. No. No, Dad. No. I remember that. He goes, okay. I'm sorry. And then he retracts what he says and or does. Sometimes. And it's a touch and go. So I understand completely what it is when a male is told no. An authority is told no. But the whole point is they're abusing that authority because they think they've got more than they actually do. They think they can tell us to do whatever the fuck they want, and the second the word comes out their mouth makes it a lawful order. You're supposed to be an officer of the law. You're supposed to know what a lawful order is and what an unlawful order is. And just because you're a cop and you think we don't know the laws, that doesn't justify you trying to bully us to get your way. I'm sorry. That's how I feel, because that's the way it is. And I don't get why everybody cannot just sit down, take the two sides of the coin, and understand the simplicity of the problem. It isn't black versus white, Chinese or Spanish. That's not the biggest problem. It's a giant one. It might motivate someone to take action and to treat unfairly. But the fact of the matter is, if you just treat people fairly because it's your fucking job, race won't matter. It's the abuse of power. And it doesn't just mean police, deans, principals, teachers, staff. When I was a kid, I had to have been 12 years old. I don't know if I told this story, but I'll tell it now. I was in a 24 hours, 7 days a week school in Pennsylvania. We were in what amounted to detention. And I didn't want to sit like this in my chair. I didn't want to sit like this. It was uncomfortable, and it's uncomfortable right now. So I tend to sit like this on the edge of my chair, my back not against the chair, my feet like this, not out of the chair, not really breaking any rules, because there was no rules in detention or any punishment. You must sit upright in the chair and all the way to the bar, blah, 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 blah. No, that's bullshit semantics, and it's not worth the fight. This gentleman, however, did not like me sitting on the edge of my chair like this. So he asked me to sit back, and I told him no. And I was completely baffled on why is he making such a big deal of it. Then he got more angry the more I denied doing what he asked. It was uncomfortable, so I refused to sit uncomfortably. And I kind of wanted him to do this. But I didn't think about it as a 12-year-old boy. Anyhow, so the more I resisted, the more he got upset. And then he went from yelling and demanding I follow his orders to physically laying his hands on me. Now, this gentleman, at the time, I mean, I'm 41 now, I know roughly size better than I did then, but I did then too. He looked like he could bench at least 350 pounds. So, put him at 5'8", and he probably weighed about 250, 260, and he looked like he could bench his own weight well over. Walking up to a 12-year-old boy, grabbing him and slamming him all over the floor. okay? I had more lumps on the top of my head than I have hair by the time he was done. And all I remember, and I still have to laugh at this, and it's only because it's impressive. Now, I described how strong this dude looked and could bench. He was trying to take these two hands and restrain them behind my back, like the police do. He couldn't get my hands free from behind me. Well, I was laying on my chest as he slammed me, and I was holding my hands like this, and he couldn't break them apart. So he kept pulling and pulling, and I was giggling. I'm sorry, it was funny. This big, strong behemoth couldn't pull a 12-year-old hands apart. So I gave him one arm. After a certain point, I just gave up. And he didn't win, and I'm not even trying to be cocky. He didn't win. I conceded and gave him my arm. So he took my arm, put it behind my back where my waist was, which was fine. That's the way you're supposed to do it. He goes, now give me the other one. I was hesitant because it gave him too much leverage. But I did it anyways because I wanted to end this. So he took both my arms and he pulled them up my back. I could touch my own ears. And it wasn't fun. Okay? I tried to press charges on him when I was a kid. My father and the school convinced me he was having a bad day and not hold it against him and try to be understanding. And it'd be the best interest of everybody. As you know, that's bullshit. Best interests of the school, that there was no police report of child abuse. But I liked the guy beforehand, and we were pretty cool. So one of his close friends and staff, and I'll have to say one of my father figures while I was there, I really looked up to him. And you know what? I still don't hold it against him for suggesting I give him a mulligan on this one. I did it at all their behest. Now, the two gentlemen that were like father figures to me told me, listen, I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm telling you to consider the circumstances. And it's up to you at that point. Now, it's a little harsh to ask a 12-year-old. Now, mind you, my father didn't believe me. He's one of those type. First thing he asks you, what did you do? When I told him, he's like, you're lying. You had to have done something. Nobody's going to just go crazy like that because you wouldn't sit back in the seat. And after he had no choice but accept that, well, if you would have sat back in the seat, that would never happen to you. You're right. It may not have, but you know what? It might have happened to somebody else. And you know what? I ain't trying to be a martyr, but I'll take that one for the team. Because there was other kids in the room that if they would have broke his rules, they might have caught that beating. And nobody should have caught that beating. And I'd rather have been me than them. But I forgave him. And ever since that, until after I left the program, him and I were pretty cool. And I did forgive him. And I did believe he was serious, that he was sorry. Should he have paid the price? You tell me. Did I do the right thing? Or did I do the wrong thing? And I'll clarify that. Did I do what was best for me and the situation? Or did I do what was best for them and the situation? Or did I do the best thing for the gentleman who lost his temper, which I guarantee you he never did again? But I hate to be the one to help him learn that lesson. But hey, sometimes you got to take one for the team. Who did I do it for? The best interest of the school, the best interest of me, the best interest of, I wish I could remember his name. I used to call him the Pit Bull. We'll call him the Pit Bull. Not Pit Bull, the Pit Bull. Best interest of the Pit Bull, or the best interest of our relationship between me and the pit bull. You be the judge. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. I missed them. I'm sorry. When I was there, I hated the place because I felt trapped. Felt abandoned by my parents. But I could have had a lot more fun, and I could have probably learned a lot more if I wasn't such a bad kid. Before that school, I was a dangerous kid. Didn't know anything. I had preconceptions of everything from girls to race. And there was 4 guys, we'll say 5, no, we'll be generous, 6, but 4 of them we'll give the most credit to, that opened up my eyes and didn't just tell me things, they taught me things. And what the difference is, one is just saying, hey, chickens are chickens. What's a chicken though? It's another thing, say chickens are chickens, and this is what a chicken looks like. You get what I'm saying? These 4 gentlemen, they took me to gospel churches, took me to church. They made me earn it. That's how the program worked, to get off the program, to go to clubs or parties or churches. You had to earn it, which is fine, make the children behave, and I'm not mad at that. But the school made me deserve it to go to church. Isn't that funny? So they took me to gospel churches, plural, and showed me what I didn't know. Taught me what it was to be a man. It took time to fully envelop everything that was taught to me. I've done some dishonorable things since then. It took some time for me to master honor. But I would have never known it if not for them. I probably would have not understand races, meaning that there's no difference between races, any more difference than there is between my family and your family. You may like chicken and I like beef. You might like hot dogs and I might like cheeseburgers. That's like the differences between races, when you really look at it. Now, people from different countries, it's not race, it's just how that country is. Like, for instance, I don't know if you can tell. Shh, I'm white. So are people from England. We're nothing alike. At all. As a matter of fact, we both don't even speak the same language. I speak American. They speak English. What? I don't understand. This is American English. English is a whole nother canary. Anyway, we're different people. Completely. The only similarities we've got is literally, in some cases, mind you, because some of them have darker skin, oliver skin, and some of them are just a different tone of white or Caucasian. But that's the only difference. If you grew up in a place like Egypt or Africa where it's basically sunny year-round, even in the dark, it's 120 degrees. There's probably a good chance your skin tone will be black, brown, tan, versus a place where the weather changes in such a formula that it's dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, hot, cold, warm, Luke, that person will probably have whiter skin. So it shouldn't play a part. But as a child, I wasn't taught any of that stuff by my family or my experiences where I grew up so much. But that school, those teachers and staff, and no, they weren't all black. And if you didn't get it, they were black staff. There was 2 black staff and 2 white teachers, which still both taught me the same thing, but a different way. I only remember one name for the black staff, and we'll just call them Victor. So Victor, and I wish I knew this guy's name because he's the one that introduced me to gospel music and gospel church and Christian churches of other kinds. Anyway, the 2 of them showed me churches, taught me loyalty, taught me respect for all races in their own way, like going to gospel church, being around nothing but black people, cheering and inspirational. That's an eye-opener. Even if you don't want the religion, just the experience is a fucking eye-opener. Especially when you compare it to traditional Catholic church. Welcome to church. God loves you. Sorry, I left my personality at home. You go to a gospel church, yeah, welcome to we jumped around. Huh? What the hell? How come I can't fall asleep here? Go to a traditional Catholic church when I was a kid, I fell asleep every time. I'd wake up to a smack, thanks, Father. But I would fall asleep all the time. Then the 2 white teachers were more country in the sense of they chopped wood, they had a farm, but it was more like a pet farm. It was inside one of those trailers, like you see at construction sites, and the whole place was full of wildlife. And it had a little farm in the back with goats and things. Roy Erdman, and the other guy's name was Dan. And the only reason I really remember his name is because Dan is kind of hard to forget. And I spent more time with them because they were my teachers. They taught me about animals. They taught me about woodworking, hard work, loyalty, and respect. And that all people were equal. And to treat them accordingly, especially if you want to be treated that way. That's what I try to teach my son. It took me a minute to grab it as much as I have it now. I'm hoping it takes my son less. God, I hope so. So this double standard horse shit. We'll get back on topic real quick and end it at this. We all have our issues where we want to win. It's all about winning and being in control. If we shared the control, we'd all have control. Therefore, there'd be no out of control. My son's mother has full residential custody, refuses to give up half of residential custody. So I have non-custodial. She wants all the power, but she wants all the benefits. She doesn't want all the responsibility, if you get my point. When he's bad, he's your kid. When he's good, he's mine. That horse shit. But she really believes it. His bad behavior is my fault. His good behavior, his intelligence, is her doing. okay. She hasn't looked in a mirror in a long time. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not saying she's ugly. That's not the look I'm talking about. Into her own eyes, seeing the bullshit she spits out. But this is going to be the end. It's 10:20. Until the next episode. Oh, one more thing. Thank you all for subscribing who are, and for your likes and views. But I need subscribers. I would like to get monetized so I can do more, not just have sheets surrounding me so I have my own green screen. I want to give my son the future he deserves and the one I should have had. So I know I sound needy because I'm in a position that I need help. I'm not afraid to ask. Please subscribe. You're welcome to leave me comments. If you want to join, I'll Zoom you or phone call, and we'll do a session, and you can say what you got to say. I let everybody speak their mind, and I'm not going to judge you. Even if you disagree with me, I'm going to let you say your piece. When you know what? Hey, we each got our thing. This is what I know. This is my proof. These are the facts. You give me yours. We'll maybe meet in the middle. I'm not ashamed to say I'm wrong when I'm wrong. And as you can see, I like to talk. So please subscribe, hit that like button, leave me a comment, let me know what you want to talk about. Let me know something. I don't care. Tell me the weather. Feel free to communicate, because the only way we're going to get communication is somebody takes a step and says something. I'm saying all that I can. Now I need your help to finish the conversation. So on that note, I'll double peace.